This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I would like to call to order the City Council, the South Burlington City Council special meeting of January 29th, 2024. And the first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. So, let's see. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's hope that continues, Item 2, instructions on exiting the building in case of an emergency and review of the technology. Jesse?
Thank you. So for those who are joining us in person in the room, if there's an emergency, you can go out to the rear of the auditorium on the left or right side, and then turn left or right to get outside. For those participating remotely, thank you for joining us. If you'd like to speak on any item on the agenda, please turn your cameras on, and the chair will call on you. If you'd like to speak, if you would like to, you can indicate to me that you would like to speak in the chat, and I'll have the chair call on you. Otherwise, we are not monitoring the chat for content.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 is the agenda review. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes in order of the agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on to comments and questions from the public not related to the agenda. Oh, please, come up. Thank you. And Dave Albright after you.
Dan.
Or Dan. Did I say it says? Sorry, Dave. Dan.
Is the light?
Okay, it's very bright.
Yes. Yeah.
Basically, it's just.
Can you share?
Yeah.
Public.
Yep. Cindy Freeman. One, I want to say thank you for the 2 straight arrows heading west, Route 2. That was brilliant because it was always, when it was right toward the highway going to 89 North or straight, many people didn't understand that they would move into you. So the 2 straight arrows were brilliant. I think that another, more demarcation would be good for heading 89 south from the Staples Plaza.
Mm-hmm.
Many cars, when they turn, they think that they can still go straight when they're turning right onto 89 south, and I'm surprised an accident hasn't occurred yet, because they are constantly moving quickly into the straight lane. So just would love that kind of demarcation for that. So
Thank you. I would agree. I think that's a challenge. I got caught there the other day. Oh, nuts, I was thinking I was on the other side where you stay right, and you can get on going north, or you can keep going to Dorset Street. So it is, even for those of us who travel there all the time, you can.
Cindy Freeman again. When you're taking the Spare Street turn, so you're heading from Route 2, heading toward the hospital, and then you immediately take that turn and you go straight onto Spare Street and take another turn. There's a yield going this way, but people don't see the people here on that turn. I think the yield would be better for the people who are making the turn, not for the people coming in, because we get to see the people better from that turn than they do, and they're going kind of at a pretty fast speed usually, so it would be better, I think, reversing that yield.
Okay, well, thank you. Dan Albert.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We sure can, and we can see you.
Great. Okay, thanks. First off, let's like to thank, I know you can stop, both of you still have a few meetings left before you officially, well, you're not riding off into the sunset, but uh, at least, but I'd like to thank both you, Helen, and Megan, for your many years of service. I know we perhaps disagree on some issues, but I do thank you for your many hours. I think if you add it all up, that's a lot of hours there. So thank you very, very much for that. I know your hearts are always in the right place. It's not on the agenda. I just certainly. I did want to speak briefly again along the issue of the potential purchase of, I guess it's now the Bellavance properties on Spear Street there, and just reiterate some of the reasons and perhaps some new considerations why I think this would be a really inappropriate use of city funds. I'll just leave it at that in the broad theme. But I'd like to put it a reason for why. So the purpose of, one of the many purposes of zoning is that it sets the ground rules for what you can and can't do on your property. And the city is blessed with having, or it could be a burden too, very detailed zoning regulations. And part of that is that it makes it very clear both to an owner as well as abutters what can and cannot happen to a property. And the city has invested many, many hours in coming up with very detailed zoning regulations. And the interim zoning process is over. The regulations were adopted, and it lays out clearly what can and cannot happen in the property. And the gist of it is contained in the zoning district map, which I was looking at again before I got ready to testify. And it's very clear that, you know, the front, I don't know, every couple hundred feet or, you know, however, call it the front quarter of the property is in the neighborhood residential district. And it's, you know, in looking at the map, it's, you know, it's very clear that, you know, that portion of the property that's in neighborhood residential makes sense because indeed it is bounded on the north by a high density residential neighborhood of South Point Drive, and to the south over one of the city's also very high dense neighborhoods of the South Village complex. And indeed, the DRB, which I was a member of, and other prior DRBs assumed a connection between those two neighborhoods, assumed the density. And so, but again, to the larger point of the reason you have the zoning is to take the politics out of land development. You go through a comprehensive process like the city did, and the city put in much more stringent environmental protections, the habitat block concept. So as others have pointed out, buying the land or buying a conservation easement is just redundant. It's already protected through the zoning. And yes, hypothetically zoning could change. It's true of any single parcel in the district, but for the city to get involved in this just seems like an inordinate waste of funds. That's part of the purpose of zoning. There was a time years ago when towns and Vermont Land Trust or others were running around like chickens with their head cutting off, preserving more farms in more areas, but this is just really inappropriate. The other thing that really troubles me is were Champlain Housing Trust coming to the city with a project, or Evernorth, or one of the true nonprofit housing developers, then I could see where the genesis would come from, that it was truly going to happen. And I would worry that even if the city did go through with the purchase of the property, that the politics of it, and the neighbors already stopped development there once, and there's no reason they wouldn't push it forward against, and it becomes a political decision when it shouldn't be, and all. And then there's the larger issue of, well, if the city's going to do this for the Bellavances, why isn't it doing for JL Davis Realty or UVM or the Farrells or anybody else, or the Pomerlows who own large properties where the city could come in, and those developers could reasonably say, well, you bought an easement on the part of the land that couldn't be developed from the Bellavances. Why won't you do the same for me? So I just think it's a really sticky wicket, and the city should sort of stay out of this because it just would set a really bad precedent. And then lastly, as I said previously, it would be nice to see the city putting some effort into open space and recreation areas closer to where all the future growth is going. So I'll just leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you. Bridget, did you want to speak?
I did. I want to ask Dan. So, well, actually, the city and Dan and everyone.
Can you give
So-
your name so the public knows who's speaking?
I am Bridget Jean Gracie. Our family owns 1336 Williston Road. We've owned it since 1940. And that corner lot was my grandmother's. It burnt down, and we were advised, my mom and I, after my dad passed, to tear it down by Ray Belair, which the zoning would come in our favor. And that's our family corner. And it's getting, we're not a Pomelo, we're not nothing. This is our homestead. This is our home. And it's getting taken, or it's every time I turn around you can do this. We're trying to sell it, my brother and I, and in the estate, and I've never seen anything like it. After we pretty much are the oldest residents in South Burlington. My dad owned Gracie's store. My grandfather owned it way back when, and my hands are tied on this. It's like I don't know. It's heartbreaking. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to accurately understand which parcel. Is this the one across from Gracie's? And there was
Yes, I am Bridget Gracie.
and then
Gracie's
the house
Stores.
burned down, and you.
My
and so
grandmother's home.
Okay, so the issue for you is that you're trying to sell it, and you're not able to, or
No, they actually added. So when there was a fire, it didn't burn all the way down. Ray Belair said to my mom and I, my dad's gone, and said, you would benefit from the new zoning that's going to come up. So tear the building down. Well, we listened to him. We tore it down, and all of a sudden the zoning, come to find out, it wasn't in our favor because, well, I still have a foundation under there. So they said, now you're not grandfathered in. So now you need it to, I don't mind the 2-story or 4-story, minimum 2, 4, but all of a sudden we have trip-ins. So I have an unmarketable piece of property.
you
per
have
se.
trip-ins?
Yes, the city went and put trip-ins. So there can only be a certain amount of cars this is
okay.
open lot. Yes, you can't. So if I was to sell my parents' property, and they told what it's listed as T4 or whatever 4. We met with Marty multiple times. It says all of a sudden they're throwing, well, you can only have a certain amount of cars now in and out. Ray Belair said, no, don't worry about parking everything. It's the best thing. And so we tore the house down. It was the biggest mistake, which I can build it on there. I still have a foundation under the ground, but it's a beautiful piece of property. There's I don't know. I'm in charge of it. There's housing issues. I sold off the other properties, to give to Habitat. I'm all for all that stuff. It doesn't matter what goes there. We just don't want the city to keep misleading us with different, we were misled. And
Okay. Well,
the trip-ins is something you might want to look into. It was, Marty knows all about it. They changed all the zoning on us. I mean, after I don't understand after 1940 owning the property and you change what was there. And we were the only anything in South Burlington.
Okay, I think our city manager would like to make a comment, if that's okay.
So
Absolutely.
hi, Ms. Gracie. I'm glad you've been engaged with Marty. The community regularly does update the zoning. That's one of the primary roles of the city council and the planning commission is to look at zoning changes. Right now, Paul, you can't see him, but Paul Connor, our planning and zoning director, is in the audience. The planning commission is working on transportation demand management strategies in order, we hope, to address the trip end issue along Williston Road, because you're absolutely right. Because of that trip end issue, we are curtailing development in a way we don't intend. So I don't have your contact information, but if you want to shoot it to me in an email or call my office tomorrow, I'd be happy to connect you with Paul, and he can describe the timeline of that transportation demand management strategy process.
Okay, and your name again?
I'm Jesse Baker. So it's jbaker at southburlingtonvt.gov.
Thanks, Jess. Yeah, so I mean, selling real estate and everything, I always worked with, Todd and Martha and everybody in our family for years. We're from South Burlington. We are South Burlington. But thank you very much. It's a little bit of hope that we're looking for.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for sharing that with us, and hopefully you can work it through, Jesse.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Absolutely.
Okay, are there any other people who would like to make a comment on an item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to number 5, which is the counselor's announcements and reports on committee assignments and the city manager's report. So Larry, do you want to start?
I can start, and I have nothing to say.
Okay, well, no report then.
No
All right, well,
report.
that's okay. That's Megan?
Yep, I attended the Affordable Housing Committee meeting on January 17th, and they were working on their work plan for the year, and they were talking about how they can support climate-related quality of life improvements. For example, how to connect historically underserved residents to resources to weatherize homes, access renewable energy, and switch to low-carbon transportation options. They also are looking into ways to collaborate with other committees, such as the Energy Committee, the Bike Ped Committee, and the Economic Development Committee, as well as the various city departments. So I thought it was a really good plan that they're working on, a nice way to really work with the city plan in place, but also work broadly with everybody else.
Great, thank you. Tim?
Well, of course, I was here last Monday for the steering committee meeting, like other people were. But that's it. There was one CCUD meeting. I couldn't get into the teams meeting. I'll have to talk to Ann Jan about that. But there's another one scheduled this week. And then the Board of Civil Authority was canceled because I think it was a lack of
A lack of quorum, yes.
Yeah, that's too bad. So hopefully we'll get that together. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, great. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I guess, I had a airport commission meeting, and I brought up both the issues about the striping machine. I don't know if I mentioned that at the last meeting, and so potentially that's at least being discussed. And then also I asked about the path and whether that was going to go through the Picard Circle. And it is not at this point. The path plan is before the DRB in March. But that portion of airport property is not included in that larger path plan.
Has there been any movement with the community gardens in that area? Do you know?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. They also, just to bring you up to date on sound mitigation, there was testing, since they said next week, it must have been this week, for the sound mitigation efforts for the new homes, and they're working no, I'm sorry, for the homes that have been undergone the mitigation. And so they go in again and test to see if it is effective. And what they've heard back from residents have been very favorable. Everyone has said the construction workers were really good. They cleaned up, they were thoughtful and polite, and they kept people apprised if there was going to be a delay, so they weren't, sitting around waiting to see if they were going to show up on a Monday. So they were very positive about the experience. So that was helpful.
Helen, could I
Yeah.
ask, did people have to leave their homes for that work to happen?
I don't know what's required. I guess it depends what
What's
work
happened?
is being done.
Yeah.
They have to move a lot of their
They have to move some of their furniture.
Get to the windows.
Yeah. That I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of activity on Kirby Road, and I just wondered if the people were still living in those, still staying there as they were doing
Yeah,
that work. It was
it-
quite extensive. It
Yes,
looked like
it
it
is
was
quite
quite extensive.
extensive, and it probably depends on the individual. I mean, some people, I've lived through construction and you can do it, or
Right.
people move out. So I think probably it's a preference, and certainly there's be affordability or a place to stay while it's being worked on. There are 50 new ones, and that they're going out for the next round, and homeowners are currently signing up. They're also going door to door, so people know that they can sign up this time, be part of the next 50, and this also includes some multifamily units. I think that's the first time. So the project or program is moving forward. Okay. Jesse.
Thank you. Biggest news of the night is that the timeline has closed for people to submit petitions to run for office. So this is all in the council's inbox, but just for the community, these are the candidates that will be on the ballot. So for the school board, there's one candidate each for the 3, 2, and 1 year terms. In order, that's Chelsea Tillinghouse, Elaine Sisai is, I believe how you pronounce it, and Tim Warren running for the remainder of that 1 year term. For the city council, for the 3 year term, Lori Smith and Linda Bailey are running. For the 2 year term, Mike Scanlon, Julian Keenan, and Lydia Diamond are running. And for the 1 year term, Elizabeth Fitzgerald is running. So those are our candidates for elected office in South Burlington. Thank you I see several of them on the screen. Thank you all for volunteering and giving of yourselves in service in this way. We will be inviting some of them to future leadership team, or inviting the city council candidates all to future leadership team meetings to kick off their orientation and make sure they are well-informed candidates. Also wanted to share that in front of you, council, tonight is our FY23 annual report. Andy Broombar, our new communications and outreach coordinator, did I think, really exceptional job on this report. It's also linked on the front page of our website. So we encourage folks to check that out. And thanks to the leadership team who put a lot of time and effort, and the committees, into putting together this annual report. We are also working with the school department to finalize the FY25 budget book. We hope those are up online tomorrow as well, and copies available towards the end of the week. Both of these documents will also have hard copies available at the clerk's office and in the library. We have a couple of different events coming up to talk to the community about town meeting day and the items on the ballot. On Wednesday morning, I will be doing with the leadership team a presentation to the South Burlington Business Association. On Thursday evening, Tom DePietro and I will be doing the budget presentation for Town Meeting TV, and that will also be recorded, and we will push that out through our communication channels. And then Tom and I continue our roadshow on February 25th at the Senior Center. So hopefully folks will tune in and get engaged about what is happening on the ballot on Town Meeting Day. And then finally, I mentioned this to the council, but for the community, we have a really exceptional deputy city attorney. Sorry, Steve. Candidate.
He is exceptional.
He is exceptional.
That's true.
We have really exceptional deputy city attorney candidate who's accepted our offer of employment. And as soon as they notify their current team, we will notify the community of that. But we're excited about that hire. That's what I have to share.
Okay, that's great. And I was happy to see that there's some action on all the different openings, both for the city council as well as the school board. With the school board news with Act 127 and the CLA, I was concerned that someone would be listening to that and say, that sounds too complicated for me. I'm not going to jump in, but we do have 3 people, two returning and a new one, and I think that's very positive. So, next item is the consent agenda. We have one item, disbursements.
I'll move that we approve.
Second.
Are you ready for that vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So the consent agenda is approved unanimously. And Andrew Chalnick will not be with us tonight. He is en route from Florida. He's in a plane right now, so he can't even call in. Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, it's good until you get caught, I guess. So item 7 is the warning for the our second public hearing on the charter change proposal. So I welcome everyone who's here for that tonight. We will be holding our second public hearing on a possible charter change that would expand the number of school directors from 5 to 7. Prior to this evening, we've received an update from the Charter Committee on their work, been provided proposed charter change language, warned these public hearings, and received process recommendations from the city's legal counsel. The purpose tonight is to hear again from the public. We won't be responding to individual comments, except perhaps to ask a clarifying question to make sure we understand a commenter's point. After we close the public hearing, we'll take all that we've heard tonight and last week, together with any correspondence we received, and have a council discussion. Following that discussion, we may vote to place this item on the town meeting day 2024 ballot. Procedurally tonight, we'll have comments from folks who are in person and folks attending remotely. If you're in person, please walk up to the podium and I'll call on you. For those attending remotely, please indicate that you'd like to speak in the chat function, and our city manager, Jesse Baker, will keep a running tab of those wishing to speak. To be fair to everyone, I'll attempt to mix in both person and remote attendees, and if you are participating remotely, turn on your mic and your video if you wish when I call your name. And lastly, I just ask that everyone keep their comments brief and succinct and to the point. And I ask that you not be redundant with your comments if they've been made by others. And if there's time remaining for everyone who wants to speak, who has spoken, I'll entertain a second comment if it's new information. So I would open, I'd like a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll move that we open a public hearing on a charter change proposal to increase the number of South Burlington School District Board members from 5 to 7.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So our public hearing is open. Do you want to say anything? No. Okay. Is there any public comment? Bridget, do you? Oh.
Nope.
Okay.
It's
we
very
have
good.
Your
Thank
voice
you.
thing on, so I thought.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So is there anyone in the audience? Nobody? All right. Well, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the public hearing is closed on the charter change proposal. Is there any discussion by the council?
No.
No. No?
Nope.
Okay. Well, then I'd entertain a motion to have this added to the ballot.
I will move that we approve a charter change ballot item to increase the number of South Burlington School District Board members from 5 to 7 and place it on the town meeting day 2024 ballot.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that passes. Thank you. They should all be that quick. Number 8.
So that's what you just.
Oh, that's what we just did. Okay, so number 9, we're right on time.
You do have,
Oh, I'm sorry. We have to approve the warning.
so you have approved once the warning for the town meeting day ballot after you approved the budget, but that was before these public hearings on the charter change. We needed that warning in order to put it in the budget book, et cetera. But now that it's official, we need you to approve it one more time with gusto.
So I'll move that we approve the 2024 town meeting day warning.
Thank you.
Second with gusto?
Second.
Okay. All in favor with gusto? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Woohoo.
I just mean we need you to do what you've already done again. Thank you.
All right. So now we get to go to item 10, the warning for the city plan. I think I'll just quickly go through. We've had, prior to this evening, we've received several updates from the Planning Commission. We've held council work sessions. We've hosted 2 previous public hearings. We've provided additional direction to the staff and finally warned this public hearing. The purpose tonight is, again, to hear from you. We won't be responding again to individual comments, except perhaps to ask a clarifying question. And at the close, we will take all that we've heard tonight and over the last many months, together with any correspondence we received, and have a council discussion. And following that discussion, we may vote to adopt or amend the 2024 city plan. So, same process. If there's anyone who is in the audience who would like to speak on this city plan? Oh, we have to open the public hearing, excuse me.
I move that we open the public hearing on City Plan 2024.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the public hearing is open. Do you have any comments, Paul?
Just
or
briefly, as
give us
is outlined in your memo, the draft in front of you incorporates the changes that the council requested on January 8th, so it has all of those in there. Following the public hearing tonight, you have the ability to adopt the plan if you choose. The current plan will expire on February 2nd, so the end of this week. So if the council decides to make additional changes tonight, it will need to warn an additional public hearing. The current plan will then expire, which will mean that there are certain actions that happen. The city will not be eligible for grants in the meantime. There may be implications with Act 250, and you will not be able to amend your land development regulations or your capital program while you're in the time during which you don't have a plan. So,
Okay, thank
yep,
you.
just providing that context for you.
Okay, thank you. So we are in a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment? I will acknowledge we got a email comment from Dan Albrecht. Would you like to speak, Dan?
Yeah, sure. Just thinking about, I submitted written comments before throughout the process. It sounds like you made some tweaks to that first page of the, I'm not really going to speak to that regarding the issue of climate resiliency or whatever. I do want to, I sent you a link, put it here in the chat as well for the benefit of the public. There was a nice article by the New York Times about the climate impact of your neighborhood, and basically what they're doing in that analysis in that article is looking at, it's done by census tract, and we have 4 census tracts. So it's you know, on a lot of Vermont, planners know this well. You go to drill down and you find out that your town is one of 5 towns lumped into one census tract just because of the minimum amount of data points you need. But the climate impact, this climate footprint map neighborhood really shows sort of like the 2 two sides of South Burlington, as it were. And when you look at the map there, and you can play around with it too. What's nice, it sort of auto loads figuring out based upon where you are. So actually, Burlington, South Burlington show up right away. What's really fascinating, but also very troubling about the data is that it very clearly shows that the district of the southeast quadrant has higher than average greenhouse gas emissions. And it's not hard to figure out why. It's because it's all single family homes with very little commercial, if any. And so as I put in my testimony to you guys, I really, really think you need to put some language in the plan that encourages, to put it bluntly, it's almost like it's a rezoning of portions of that part of the city to encourage some commercial development, because right now everybody in that entire area has to get in their car to go anywhere and do anything, and that's why it has such higher than national average. And then you can also look to see that the other parts of the city are doing their job. And just so, as I pointed out, it's inconsistency in the city plan to preach climate resiliency, yet one portion of the neighborhood of the city does not have to make any changes. My neighborhood makes the changes. We're right next in Proctor Avenue. We're right next to the high density commercial zoning district. And the city, about a year ago, maybe longer, changed the transfer of development rights to potentially quadruple the density if somebody had transferable development rights. We're taking all the high density apartments as well as city center and the Williston Road corridor, yet this neighborhood is untouched. And it's really, really frustrating to see that. It's just a sea of single family zoning. If it was ever to be done now and you were starting over from scratch, that would never happen. Planners know better now that that's not, the way to go about things. And so it's really frustrating to see, it's sort of status quo for those folks. They get, I'll just leave it at that. So that, it's not just me saying it. It's the media pointing out the obvious. So I just encourage you to put in some language, which I put in the email, to encourage that rethinking of the zoning there. And people may scream bloody murder, but because it's change. Oh goodness. Well, we all have to change. My neighborhood's changing. We've got plenty of traffic. We got plenty of density. Right, 100 yards down the road from me, and it's time the rest of the city chip in as well. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Gracie.
Yes. So, Dan, your southeast.
I'm sorry. Would you identify yourself for the public?
I'm Bridget Gracie. I'm
Thank
owner of 1336 Williston Road and also some other properties there. I was just curious, where is the southeast you're talking about quadrant? It's not Kirby Road, is it? Are you talking Kirby Road from Williston Road to Kirby Road then?
I think this is a public hearing really for the council and not a dialogue actually among residents.
Paul Connor can answer your question, the rough boundaries of quote unquote that zoning district as well as the census district. Yeah.
Well, the only reason I say is because Kirby Road, which I had family members and everything, that is, I've been selling real estate for over 30 years, is a very high radon. So I don't think it's your commercial, anything to do with emissions or anything. If anyone tested the soil and everything down there, my family members all died from it. It used to be an old, I won't even sell on those down there. Right, not down there, but It has the highest, there used to be an old, back in the day, dry cleaning. Sorry, I don't need to bring up old stuff, but I lost my aunt to it. And it's all, they pulled Picard Avenue right on the point. It's not a good area, and it has nothing to do with commercial, anything to do with traffic. It's the soil. But just saying,
Front Porch
being born and
Forum,
raised there.
Front Porch Forum today, the state posted an item for free radon testing for residential households in Vermont.
Absolutely.
There's an email. That you
I
can-
begged
it.
my
website,
grand, yep, thank you. I begged my uncle to get it done for his home. He didn't. My aunt never smoked. My uncle, nothing. And they ate out of the garden in the backyard on Kirby Road, and they all died of cancer. But it is there. There's a lot of people, and I wish someone would look into that area. But yeah, sorry, didn't mean to bring up something, but yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
very much. Are there any other comments on the city plan 2024?
Hi, Ryan Doyle speaking. I've spoken to you a few times in the past about transportation-related issues, and I know that at this point you're not going to change anything about that in the plan and that you're going to adopt it as it is tonight. I will reiterate the importance of doing more than just an active transportation plan. I know not many of you will continue to be on the council next year, as some of you are retiring, but the active transportation plan will basically do half of what a complete streets policy would do. Complete Streets is supported by the Federal Highway Administration. It lays out 10 really important principles for making places more livable and also safer to bike and walk. One of the principles that's missing from our active transportation plan is element number 6, which is about adopting very good multimodal design standards, which we do not have here in the state of Vermont. And also a mechanism for updating them as best practices evolve through research and understanding in this country. It's something that I want to keep pushing for and promoting. I know that last time Jesse was really satisfied with the MUTCD standards that the state of Vermont has. And then we were at the Safe Routes to School task force meeting 2 Fridays ago. Hoyle and Tanner gave a presentation and they suggested crosswalk treatments, which aren't allowed by MUTCD. Hoyle and Tanner is very proud that they do work across New England, and they've, even in our active transportation plan, the promotional material itself from CCRPC, Hoyle and Tanner points out that they have experience with the MassDOT multimodal transportation standards. That's where their crosswalk idea came from that they gave in our presentation. Of course, we can't do that treatment here right now because we haven't adopted design standards. We are beholden to what Vermont has. The VTrans has given optional standards, but they are completely optional, and we don't follow them. They give really good guidance about how much spacing, for example, a sidewalk should be from a road, but you see with just the work we've done on the traffic lights for Dorset Street, we took out a sidewalk along Williston Road by the north on-ramp, which sees, just the on-ramp sees over 7,000 vehicles per day. The whole width of that road sees over 30. And we went from having a wide sidewalk to a narrowed sidewalk that's curb tight. Even the 20-year-old VTrans standards would say, put that 8 feet away so that there's place for the snow to go. That's still an outdated standard. With 3 lanes, you would actually go to 10 feet now. That would be best practice. But you can see how, I know Tim's comments last week at the steering committee meeting and the last time we discussed this topic were about making changes to the land development regulations. And that is a part of it, Tim. We really do need that. And a complete streets policy does advise that too. But what the city does, separate from what private developers do, is even more crucial. And we do need to move towards having design standards. So for those of you who are going to persist, Tim and Jesse next year, and for those of you who will be more alumni to the council in the future, to keep being aware of these issues, as infrastructure is not the easiest topic, but we really do need to, as a community, move forward with those things. And if it's not in this plan, it will require constant advocacy to actually get us there throughout all of the other political changes that come with municipal elections. So I want to encourage you again to keep learning more about that, and even those of you who are retiring, so that you can help us move that direction in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Oh, yes. Cindy.
Cindy Freeman. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for both you, Helen and Megan, for your service. That was great. I read up to just page 31. I know there's a whole bunch of pages I didn't read on the city plan. I have a hard time because I know this is going to sound awful, but having everything directed through the climate action or climate change is hard for me, because when I think of Vermont has the lowest carbon dioxide emission out of all 50 states. So I feel like, a lot of committees presented ways for the ARPA funds to be used for the community, and those ARPA funds went to a new climate change job. I just feel like I'm not sure, that we're looking at what Vermont is, and also that our electricity is pretty clean. I mean, we have, the energy mix. We're very fortunate in Vermont to have such a clean energy mix. And I feel like a lot of money is being put into this and not really benefiting the community. And when I think of, just the how far we are in Vermont in general, and then I think that in general it can be a weapon, and we're seeing that used in the southeast quadrant with 63 acres, and putting those aside, putting the Eau Claire properties aside for conservation versus development. I'm just not sure we're seeing our people. And that saddens me, because I feel like, I know that, we only have so much information we can absorb. I mean, I only read to page 31, but I think that as a city council and all the other committees, I think that looking at the fact that Vermont is very clean should direct us more so than climate action plan. So that's my little thing.
Thank you very much. Are there any other statements or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to come out of the public hearing.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So now's our chance to have any discussion that we wish.
Well, do you want me to say something first, or?
You can do whatever order you want.
Yeah, so I mean, I recognize that the document has a heavy emphasis on the city's future responsibility to take action, to take some action on climate change. And we have worked over the last 3 sessions to modify that opening paragraph because there was some concern that there was too much emphasis, right? And I don't disagree with that. But I think we've struck the right balance in this document about a whole lot of forces that are descending on Vermont and on Chittenden County and on South Burlington, right? You've got pressure from development, pressure from loss of open space, pressure from loss of habitat, forest blocks, pressure from climate change, pressure from lack of housing, pressure from transportation needs, right? So, and this is our attempt to try and deal with all that. To make a comment about the fact that Vermont emits, let's say, the least carbon dioxide. I think if you look at the per capita number on that, you might be surprised because we have a lot of rural areas. People have to travel long distances, and transportation is like one of the number one causes of. So we burn a lot of fuel. We also burn a lot of natural gas to heat our homes today. But I think that everybody has a responsibility to take some action to decrease burning something. So when your furnace goes and you end up getting a heat pump, that'll be an action you can take. When you decide to buy a new car and you get a pluggable hybrid and 99% of the time you don't put gas in it, that's an action you took. And these are actions when they're aggregated through your community or your neighborhood, your community, your county, your state. They make a real difference. And if we see that spread across the whole country and across other parts of this world, it will have an effect. It's got to start at home. So I think this document does a really good job of setting and putting that model in front of us so we have an opportunity to take those actions. So I appreciate the document and I plan to support it tonight.
Okay. Other comments?
Go ahead.
Larry?
Thanks. I think that the draft that we've received, I agree with Tim, de-emphasizes to the extent that we heard criticism for too much emphasis. And I think the opening, the edits that the team made, I think reflect that sentiment that was expressed so well from at the last meeting. So, and I agree that supporting this is important. I think the timeline, we've sort of run out of the timeline. I think we need to recognize that, as Paul mentioned earlier. So I do plan on supporting it as well.
Megan?
Yeah. So I'll also address Dan Albrecht's comments because I, like you, live in an area that is going to be prioritized for that dense development, and that does not mean that the other areas in the city are not candidates for infill, however, and it has to do more with a timeline. In order to get public transit on more sure footing, there has to be kind of a critical mass of a population. And so that's why there is some prioritization in the timeline. But any part of the city that is not natural resource protection can be a candidate for infill. So I just want you to know that there is not my neighborhood and all other neighborhoods are not being given the same treatment, just to use your word. So I think that timing is everything sometimes, and that's something that I wanted to share with you, Dan. That I read the document very carefully with that in mind, and you aren't the only one to have made that comment, and so I was very sensitive to it, not only for you and me, but for other people as well. With regard to transportation, we all need to advocate. I agree with you completely, Ryan. So I will continue to do so. With regard to the climate action, I think that we have really been responsive to concerns in those members of the public who have come forward, just like you, Cindy, and I would say that on the whole, the breakdown of where climate change and climate action needs to occur, what I heard is 50% industrial, 25% residential, and 25% municipal. So we're part of that equation, and every municipality is a part of that equation. and we all have to do our part. Now, it doesn't sign us up for anything other than we make a commitment to do our part as well as we can. And I think that's a fair commitment, and I'm proud of the city for making that commitment. So I too plan to vote for this document.
I would just like to start by really thanking both the staff and the Planning Commission and all the public that have come forward with, attended their meetings or sent them emails or suggestions. All the different committees have weighed in, and I think it's a pretty daunting effort to take all of that information and come up with the city plan. It's aspirational. So I guess if with a cynical eye, if you read through it, one could say, well, this is crazy. They're never going to get there. They're never going to do that. So why even put it on the piece of paper? I think it's important to have that kind of plan for a city that looks ahead, is even visionary in a way. That helps lead us to good conversations and decision making, changes in zoning or our daily activities, or as a community, how we even interact and congregate with one another. So I think it's a really well written, well crafted statement about this community. And we all can find something, I suppose, that we would like worded slightly differently. But I think overall, I'm very supportive of the work, and I really thank all the people, especially Paul and Kelsey, who put the words together. It's hard to do, and I think they were very careful and sensitive, and also willing to make the changes that the council and the planning commission suggested. So it really isn't their vision. It's really, they reflected with really good language, I think, what, I don't know if it was hundreds of people, but it certainly was 30 or 40 people who were very active in putting this together. And so, I think it's a real accomplishment, and I strongly support it. I like what it says. I hope we can be as successful in attaining some of the goals as possible, but I understand that, life can get in the way, or the economy can get in the way, or just, we can't make people develop where they don't want to develop, or people, to sell their land for development if they don't want to, or businesses to come and if they don't want to. But it's always has to be a collaboration of ideas and conversations and agreements. And I think this is I'm very proud of what this says about this community, and I support it wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, Andrew's not here, and he can't vote on it, but I think he certainly is, would be supportive as well. So if there's no more of our discussion, I guess I would appreciate a motion to adopt this.
Did we come out of public?
Yes, we
We
did.
did, okay.
That's why
Couldn't-
we're having the
sorry.
discussion.
You made that motion too. Yeah, we've had a few meetings this month.
Yeah. And quite a few public hearings.
When do we get a break? This has been going on a long time.
So a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve the City Plan 2024.
I will gladly second that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Ready for the vote? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So we've approved the City Plan 2024.
Nice job.
Well done.
Thank you. Yay.
Biggest vote you will take this year.
All right.
Time to start working on the next one right now.
No.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before us? All right, seeing none.
What are we going to do next Monday? Oh, that's right.
That's right, we have a meeting.
And it over till
I
it's
just
over.
had to make sure.
Well, you almost had me. I thought, but it is February coming right up.
Is Vince planning a candidate forum with a debate, so to speak?
He is. I believe it is February 15th. Is that right? No, that's not right. He is planning it. Andy's working with him. I will circulate that date to you.
And the same for the budget review on the night before?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Is that a record?
What are we going to do with
That's
ourselves?
pretty close to a record.
I don't know. I mean, I could have had dinner
Did you warn
afterwards.
Paul can go home and celebrate.
Oh, there are people here, of course.